Hi, and welcome to the February 2026 Psychic Forecast. And the new revolution cycle is beginning. So I'm going to dive into this in just a minute in this live stream. And if you're watching this as a video, I'm going to timestamp when I actually start. So I like to give the live people a minute or two to get notification. But we have some important numerology and astrology. We did mention in the beginning of January that the storm was going to start, and January has been a very, very volatile and an intense month. So what does February have in store for us? We're going to dive into that. I've got pages of different notes, predictions, to do a little numerology, astrology. So I want you guys to really understand the energies that are at play, because that's important, because this affects us personally. And if you understand the energies, you can make the most out of it without having to suffer through some of the potential challenges. I've got some divination cards to do some direct channeling with. We'll do a little transmission to help to synchronize energetically into these new energies that are affecting the planet, that the solar flares and other things are really amped up a lot lately. So that's kind of generally what's on the menu. So I'm just going to give just another minute or two. Hello, Overlander BC. You got a notification. Good. So I'm glad the notification system is working for some people. Katie, One Love. Welcome, One Love. Freezing cold in Ontario. Well, it's freezing cold in the Catskills of New York also. That's weather's part of the forecast, right? Good evening, Iris. And hi, Chris. Hi, Yvonne. Hi, Betsy. Hi, Michael. And all right. And hello, Last Opus Zero. Hello, Millie. And all right, so I'm not going to waste a whole lot of time. I've been on for 2 minutes. Hello, Jake DeCastro. Welcome. So I'm glad notifications are coming in. So I started to write an opener, and then it turned into basically like we'll just say a hybrid automatic writing thing. So it's just about a couple of pages. I'll just start out just to read what I wrote, because that's very succinct and important. Then we'll dive into a little bit of what's going on energetically, and we'll go into some of the predictions also that we have. So firstly, we're in the cosmic storm now. In recent energy weather forecasts, like the winter psychic forecast, the January psychic forecast, the 2026 psychic forecast. In recent psychic forecast, we told you that January would be the time the heart of the storm begins. So my job is to help you, guide you safely through the storm, and help you transform challenge into opportunity. So, the storm's not a bad thing. That clears the old so that we can rebuild the new, basically. It's just part of the process. It's part of the whole revolution cycle, and I'll probably be using that term more than once during this live stream. So here's what's up for February. With the storm exposing more making people more uncomfortable, this is triggering the next crest of the revolution cycle, or the new revolution cycle, as it were. A recent influx of energy happened in January, just as forecast. Now February becomes more of a month of reset. However, it will be anything but calm. Astrology and numerology hold some of the answers, along with what Spirit shares. This is our month to prepare for even greater changes in March and April. So when we get to those months, there'll be a lot to talk about, basically. This is time to make sure you're prepared for big changes coming into the world. This means have supplies, have food, have medications, if you can, have cash, all that stuff. And more importantly, it means to be spiritually prepared. So let's break it all down. So that's basically the intro that I had. Let me grab a little water. Hello, Emmy. Hello, Barber. And good. I realize at a Friday evening at 8 o'clock, most people are going to be watching this as a video. So I'm not expecting a big live. I mean, there's only 28 on, according to right now, where we generally have over 100 on the psychic forecast video. So, I figured that, but this is the only time I could do it. And I've been working a lot today, several hours of readings, preparing these notes. So it's been a busy, busy day, but this is the only night that I could do this. So here we are on a Friday evening. So firstly, February is a universal number 3 month. Basically, you just add the year and the month, right? So we're in 2026, add up to 10. Then you add another 2 to that, up to 12. 2 plus 1 is 3. Now, the interesting thing about the number 12, it's also the sacrifice in Chaldean numerology and the hangman in the tarot. So basically, we're kind of being asked to stay calm and to basically shelter in place energetically as things go on. So try not to get too far out of your own lane. Try not to get out of the eye of the storm too much. There's been such huge influxes of energy and light. The solar flares is a big part of that. Then now it's got to settle into the collective fields, into the earth fields, and there's going to be reaction to that. And that's part, the predictions come through direct messages I get from spirit visions that I have, but a lot of it is just feeling and intuition. And a lot of it is based on what's going on, with the numerology and the planet. So it comes from a lot of different sources. So number 3 taps into higher consciousness, a cosmic frequency, as it's the root of the 369 code, the Tesla 369 code. Just briefly, in this, what words am I trying to use? Well, I'll just say in numerology, like 0 is nothing, right? Nothing, so that represents the void. 1 is the manifestation, and 2 is that duality, that interplay of opposites. The matter versus antimatter, form versus non-form, male, female, all of that. So physical reality cannot exist with that duality, but 3 and all of its multiples, 6, 9, and beyond, 12 is the next one, then 15, is the energy or frequencies that affects this fractal universe. It affects the physical and creates changes. So if you can tap into that energy, you have a big edge in manifesting your reality. So this is a good. 3 is expansion, it's growth, it's Jupiterians. This is really good. It's very fortuitous in energy, naturally speaking. And there's a good time to grow and expand, basically. So let me go back into my notes. Also, number 3 can also add aggression, righteousness in its lower expressions. All the numbers, like everything else, have a higher expression, have a lower expression. And there's an increase in seeking a power, personal power and spiritual powers. That's the positive seeking a power part, versus power over others. So that's the flip side of that, right? It makes Jupiter the most important planet of February, because Jupiter 3 is Jupiter guided numerology, basically. So when I'm looking at the astrology, I'm looking at everything, but I'm really keying in on what Jupiter's doing. Jupiter is in Cancer. As a matter of fact, if you go outside, Jupiter is very easy to find. It's the brightest object in the sky. If you look at Jupiter and then you go south, maybe a tad west, but south, you'll find the star Sirius. That's the only other bright object in the sky there. If you gaze at Sirius, you can actually receive energetic or spiritual transmissions through that. It's like a portal. And, I'm I came into this as a scientist, so I take everything with a grain of salt. So people say, Sirius is the spiritual portal, blah, blah, blah. It's like, I believe them, but, I take it with a grain of salt. Then one night I was gazing at it, and then all of a sudden it was doing this Norse code thing. It was spiraling at me. It's doing all this stuff. Like, all right, I get it now. So anyway, I just figured I'd add that in. That wasn't in my notes. But anyway, there's where are we? So Jupiter is actually exalted in the sign of Cancer. So it's more powerful when it passes in Cancer. I forgot what degrees it's in. It's somewhere in the middle. I believe the star Sirius is 14 degrees Sag. Now it's an astrological alignment, but it's a different declination. So they're not really together in the sky. Jupiter's much higher, but it's still an astrological conjunction. And it's also Jupiter's in retrograde, though outer planets like Jupiter is retrograde 4.5 to 5 months. It really doesn't change things a lot. Sometimes things are a little slower when it's retrograde. Sometimes it's a step back and plan things, but it's still the same energy. And also is near conjunction with Sirius. Oh, I said that, or it wasn't my notes. Near conjunction with Sirius. This energy places more scrutiny in domestic affairs. It's the sign Cancer, right? Our country, and in our personal lives, our home and our family. So places more energy or more scrutiny there. even in its retrograde, it's fortunate, benevolent, and of course expansive. That's what Jupiter energy in the number 3 is known for, expansiveness. So when it moves through the 16th degree point, which is going to happen, I might have wrote the dates down, but it starts out at 15 degrees. It'll move through 16, and then I have it opposite because it's retrograde. It starts out at 17, moves through 16, and then goes into 15 degrees. That's the tower in Chaldean or the shattered citadel in Chaldean numerology, the tower in tarot. It becomes very erratic and changeable, and a lot of the month Jupiter's going to be there. That's the most important planet when you're really trying to analyze the energies. The better we know the energies, the more we can prepare, the more we can benefit, right? So it's important. This is when the most teardown and exposures of truth is likely. I did write it down. Between the 5th and the 15th, we're going to hit the ground running just like we did in January. That was the psychic forecast. We're going to hit the ground running. What was it, the 3rd or the 4th that Maduro was captured? So that verified, right? So this is tear down. Like it shows a leader being very forced into action. They don't choose, perhaps resignation. This is around the 5th to the 15th. It also makes several aspects, notably a trine with Mercury, quincunxes to the 3 other outer planets. That's about, what's that, 150-degree angle. That's what a quincunx is. I think it's also called an inconjunct in astrology. And that tends to be more karmic, more not generational, but more what's the right word? Like I said, I've been working a ton. More global. That word will suffice. 3 other. This suggests generational and karmic changes, exposures, etc. Jupiter seeks knowledge, truth. Leaders come under legal challenges. It seeks power also. And so there's a lot with laws and scrutiny and stuff like that. So we hit the ground running in February with a full moon on the 1st, right on the first day. I'm not going to have time this month again to do the new moon, the full moon forecast, but we will do it. It might be with Heather too, but we'll do a transmission Sunday for those energies. The full moon February 1st. We'll hit a key opposition to Venus, Mars, and Pluto leading up to the full moon. So before the moon is full, it hits these oppositions. Full moon is in Leo, right? Because the sun is in Aquarius. That's 13 degrees. 13 is the death in Chaldean numerology. Death isn't dying. It's transformation and change. It's not a bad thing. In fact, it's a good thing. We need that in this world, right? So that's a good thing. So this will enhance the revolutionary activities. This is feeding the revolution cycle that we're coming into right now. And a huge call for social and political change arises. And it really things that ruminate in the collective fields. It's not like one day everybody's thinking the same thing. It's more like an energy that has I was going to say predictable effects, but Uranus is very involved, and we're in Aquarius season, and there's nothing predictable about Uranus and its energies. And how do we get these? Sometimes people ask me, about astrology, like how do we get these meanings? And a lot of it is archetypal. Is that the word? Because they're named after different gods, like Roman gods or Greek gods or maybe Norse gods, as depending. So it has that kind of energy. So it's really an archetypal force, as well as obviously a very weak gravitational or electromagnetic force, but it has a resonance within the collective field. So the movement of the planets, actually, for my money, is more like what's the best way to say this? It's more like an expression that we can actually look at and analyze, an expression of how energy is moving through the cosmos, basically, that in numerology. So to me, that's the relevance. You guys may have your own ideas. And normally when I do more laid back live streams, I'll be looking more at your comments, maybe flashing a few comments. But I want to there's a lot of material to get through. So I want to do it in a somewhat timely manner. So this is also a huge call for social and political change. More spiritual awakenings happening, and spiritual leaders voices are more heard under this energy. Catalyzes important transition to higher expanded consciousness. That Jupiter energy is expanded. It's a 3 months, so Jupiter is highlighted. Also, fire sign Sagittarius, which is Jupiter ruled, is very resonant with the year of the fire horse. Sagittarius is a fire sign. Um, Sagittarius is a centaur, right? So it's very has that horse energy. So we have a couple of weeks to shed the old skin, shed the old layers, to transmute the poison into medicine. That's what the year of the snake does. Then we get on that horse, which is empowerment and freedom. It's a fire horse. It's very energetic, very active. So this period, 2026 into early 2027, is going to be very, very energetic. A lot of positive stuff, but since there's so much negative forces against us, it's also very changeable and volatile at the same time. Catalyze important transition to higher expanding consciousness. All right, I said that already. So it's all right. I said that also. So the new moon is an annular solar eclipse on the 28th. That's the Ring of Fire eclipse. So the moon is kind of small, compared to average. So I don't think the moon's exactly in its, what's it called, apogee, at its farthest from the Earth, but it's close to it. And this time of year, the sun's a little bit larger because it's closer to its. We're closer to the perihelion. That happens in early January. So when there's a smaller moon, that means you see the disk of the sun even during the total. So that's, if anybody wonders, that's why it's a Ring of Fire effect. I don't think we see it here. I didn't even check. I should have, because that's where the energies are strong. It's where the actual physical eclipse is. So when you have an eclipse, it's like a super new moon in a way, because it's as conjunct as it can be, because its declination as well as its degree points are the same. So it's really like it expands the lens of that energy. It has a gravitational effect. We're 70-80% water, and you see what it does to the tide. It also affects the land, by the way. I mean, maybe just a millimeter, but that it does cause land to rise slightly. It's gravitational. And that's one of the reasons why there's a tendency to have more earthquakes, volcanoes, and that kind of activity around the new and full moon. So that's a little interesting tidbit for you guys. And then it's right around Mardi Gras, which translates to Large Tuesday or Fat Tuesday. Ramadan begins the night of the new moon. What? I didn't even write the date down. Is that the 14th or 15th? I didn't even write the date down. Shame on me. Well, you can look it up, right? You don't need that. So extremely powerful solar cycle begins then. Eclipses intensify the energies. Mercury be trining Jupiter will further add energy. This could signal very spiritual but chaotic times. Big energetic changes, changing of the guard. Aquarius, revolutionary energy again, evolution, sudden change. Now, Saturn and Neptune will have their exact conjunction on the 20th. They've been in conjunction, more or less for over a year. It'll be at 0 degrees Aries. What's 0 degrees of a cardinal sign for the astrologers out there? That's called the world axis. So when you have heavy aspects right on the world axis, it has, as you would expect, a resonance of change and upheaval on the planetary scale, basically. And because it's in Aries, that's the sign, that's the new beginning sign. Some people believe that the true new year is either on the equinox, which is 0 degrees Aries, or April the 1st. So everybody has their own ideas, right? But so Saturn Neptune, it's an interesting conjunction. It happens every 32 years or so, 31, 32 years. And if you look back at these points, I'm not going to go through it now. You'll see these are points where there's been a lot of upheaval throughout history. Now, Saturn tries to be practical. Saturn is kind of like, I'm the structure, I'm the government, right? It's the ruling planet of Capricorn. It's karmic, it's lesson. But nebulas tend to be more ethereal and nebulous. So you can bring this very spiritual Neptune energy into more of a grounded nature. And that's going to help, because Neptune's also about illusions and delusion. That's going to put more energy in exposing a lot of the corruption, that's hidden underground. I'm kind of taking to calling it like the global mafia. Globalists will work, reptilians work also, but whatever term you like, we're all talking about similar things, anyways. So what else do we have? Can ground spirituality can signal important changes in the collective to feed the ascension, because we are in an ascension cycle also. It's a revolutionary phase of the ascension cycle. So everything is cycles on cycles, right? Everything happens, in cycles. So the awakening cycle is a broader cycle than the revolution cycle. And interesting, a lot of revolution cycles peak around solar maximums, like around when the American and French Revolution is a shining example of that, by the way. And there's a lot of social unrest also that happened. You can look at around 70, 72, I believe, was a solar maximum. That you can look at things, but anyway. And then the third, Uranus goes direct. So Uranus is stationed. When the planet's stationed, it's hanging around that same part of the sky, beaming its energy from the same position, and it's magnified. Now, granted, Uranus always moves very slow, so it's not that big of a deal, but it's still the station, and it's right at in Taurus, at the late degrees of Taurus. So what does that mean? It's sudden release and change in the earth. Volcanoes primarily, earthquakes too, but I feel like it's going to be more. I mean, it could be either, but I have a feeling volcanoes may be more in the news this month than earthquakes. But the earth is very charged up, I'll put it that way. It also affects the economy. We're going to be talking a little bit more about the economy and changes of that in just a moment. So it gets Taurus is about money and stability in the earth and groundedness and possessions. It also affects money systems, geopolitics. That's all on the table. Could initiate a financial crash. That sounds scary, but that's maybe what we need in order to reach the next level of a more fair economy. We'll see, because that's still years in the making, but we'll see how that all plays out. Could an exposure of corruption in the banking system, central bank, Federal Reserve, WEF. We had a bunch of reptiles sitting in Switzerland. Right? It's all. To me, it's all a show. The decisions are made before all these leaders get together. So anyway, we were already seeing this silver, gold. There's a big crash in silver and gold today, right? I'll get to that in a second, because those of you that I'm pretty invested in silver myself. Don't worry. I'll say that now, but I'll get a little bit more detail in a little bit. So on the 13th, Saturn joins Neptune in Aries. So Neptune's already in Aries. Saturn's going to join. They're going to be at 0 degrees, so right at the beginning, right on the world axis. So that's when a lot of action starts. It's not necessarily. I mean, it could start on the 11th or 12th, but you know what I'm saying. And it can precipitate fires, volcanoes, tsunamis. These are all part of the energies of this particular transit, at least from what I'm sensing. I'm not the expert in this. I know a lot about astrology, but if somebody asked me to do an astrology reading, I'm going to forward that reading to somebody that does that, a trained astrologer. I'll talk to dead people. I'll do psychic work, and I can do astrological readings, but people trust me. They also trust me to get them to the best source of whatever information they're looking for. So anyway, moving right along, 25th, that's when the Mercury retrograde begins. So the approach begins around the 8th. So when Mercury hits its approach, that's when the effects really start to get felt. Honestly, I feel it before then. I think Mercury really starts to slow down even before that. And then we start to see the energy jam up, because Mercury is the fastest mover. It's also very connected with the sun's electrical circuitry. So when there's changes in Mercury energy, we really feel it on some level here. So Mercury retrograde is powerful for 2 reasons. One, just because of the electromagnetism and the our typical energy. But the second reason is that so many people believe Mercury retrograde is a hard thing that we feed that into the collective also. So anyway, but it begins on the 25th. Now, in Silver Tank, it's the Silver Tank of Black Swan event. So I kind of wrote that down. It's like, how many people saw that coming? Well, if you've been following the channel, we said that silver was going to come down in January after making significant changes. Now, honestly, I didn't know that would happen in the second to last day of January, but that prediction verified. And also another January prediction is that these metal markets, as well as everything else, is going to be very volatile. It's going to be up and down. Silver, from what I understand, has had a reputation of being a more stable metal. But what did it drop, like 20% in one day or something? So things are changing, right? It's more energy into the system. It affects things like that. So it wasn't necessarily a black swan event, if you've been following me, and others that know also. Not if you. All right, I said that. All right, so I'm done patting myself on the back happily. All right. So let me go on to page 6 of 18 pages. So let's dive into the economy a little bit, right? You guys are having a really good write up the price and sell and slam down the price. Yeah. I'm getting to that. Very astute, Josh. Start with the economy, money. You're in a station in Taurus. Screams volatility. Unexpected changes to money, security. Also, Saturn going into Aries and joining Neptune on the world axis. The economy is a big part of that. Money's power. He who controls the money controls the world, right? Basically, money schemes are more likely to be exposed. We talked about that in January. I'm not aware of any major money or crypto scams being exposed. It may have happened, that may have verified. I'm not aware of it. But sometimes things don't verify on the month that I forecast them. Sometimes it takes a little longer. Timing is the hardest thing to nail down, honestly. But anyway, drop today, designed to get people to panic sell. So it's all orchestrated and fixed. But still, you do have a supply and demand issue. I mean, they could fix it for a time, but then certain later basic economics are going to take over. So what happens when there's a silver shortage, when it's being used in AI technology, it's being used in weapons, it's being used in electric vehicles, being used in computers? That means that there's less silver available for collectors and commodities. When there's less silver available, naturally the price is going to go up. Now, gold tends to be more aligned with the economy itself, with the value of the dollar itself. Silver too, to some level. I've got that more in my notes, so let me go into that. So announcement. There's the announcement of Kevin Warsh. Am I pronouncing his name right? That he might be nominated as the chair of the Federal Reserve. He's got a reputation. People feel a little bit uneasy, so it affects the economy. When people are very skittish, so it really affects the economy. Now, interesting thing is, if these metals are going down, to me that would make me think that people are expecting a stronger economy. I might be wrong. Economy is not my wheelhouse, so I get things intuitively. I try to look a few things up, so I know kind of what I'm talking about intellectually, but that's what I felt. So I looked it up, and certainly it happened like yesterday, right? So that's one of the things, and they know how people think. People are so heavily, deeply programmed. They know how to push the buttons to create the effects that they want. So don't panic sell. That's my message. But for people that were thinking they were going to buy, but then it went too high, well, you may have your chance now. Last I checked, it's in the mid 80s. I think February will be up and down, but they're saying trending up, especially later in the month. So I think you'll have some time, but up and down, up and down. So strong dollar, sell off. So stronger dollar. I can't see how, but that's what when I was looking up the economic markets. That's what's being shown, a stronger dollar. Maybe just yesterday and today, I don't know. But on that note, we could see signs of a rebound for XRP, Bitcoin. I think a little bit later on for Bitcoin. I think XRP maybe later in the month. Metal increase shows dollar decrease. When metals get unstable like that, to me, it's a sign that the economy is becoming unstable also. So it's a marker that when things start to get unstable, then changes happen. There could be a crash. Watch out. I don't think it's going to happen in February, but watch out for signs of that as we move into the month of February, especially later on. Further stabilization of sign of change. Also, copper investments, that kind of came up. But the thing is, unless you have warehouses, it's like, how are you going to, have physical copper? What is it going for? Like a few dollars a ton or something like that. So invest in copper mining companies, right? Because what's going to happen? Silver shortage. Silver's used in a lot of technology. Copper's not quite as good at conductive metal, but it's the next best thing. So they're going to be using more copper. People may be thinking, well, no more pennies and no more. No, pennies, that's not it. Wiring, it's used in a lot of things. So if you're looking for, do your own research. But this is just when I was doing my notes, it's just idea just kind of came up in my mind. And I think it might have been Joseph Tittle, but I think somebody else made a similar assertion in the recent video I saw. One of the other psychics, anyways. So often we're in agreement with things, that there's more credence to it. So anyway, what else? Trump. We're going to get into Trump too. Trust me. Trump is often a key subject in the psychic forecasts, and for good reason, right? So Trump bought a piece. Trump bought a piece. Right, that was part of the WEF. Sometimes it's hard to know where Trump stands, because sometimes he seems like an outlier. Other times he seems like he's just following the agenda of the globalists. So it's really hard for me to know exactly where he stands on that. But it showed signs of that building divide we've been talking about, that World War III agenda. You will notice that NATO countries are not in the Board of Peace because they have NATO, they have the UN, right? So countries, I don't know if China's in, but Russia's thinking about going in, Middle East. And, again, it's billed as a way of creating lasting peace in the Gaza, basically. But what we see, like who's in it and who's not, we see those lines in the sand getting deeper. And so there's certain countries with one ideology, certain others. You see the same thing with BRICS Plus nation versus maybe let's say group of 20 now or group of 30. I can't keep up, but anyway, you get the idea. So Trump order of peace shows signs of a building divide. No NATO countries involved. At least I don't think any NATO countries are involved. If they are, somebody post that. I don't mind being corrected. I'll just put that out there. It's not going to offend me or anything. So Trump info that comes through. Firstly, they're saying, the number 3 energy, we're in a 3-month. Number 3 energy does not agree with him. And I'll explain why, and why this could be an even tougher month for Trump. And in the extreme where his presidency could come in jeopardy. So number 3 does not agree with him. Right now, he's in his personal 3 year. He's born on June 14th. So he's in his 3 personal year, and we're in a 3 universal month right now. So it's his personal number 5 or number 6 year right now, depending on which system of numerology you adhere to. But either way, 5 is very transitional. 6 is also an interesting energy too. But anyway, the number 5 and number 6 both connect to health, or can, especially number 6. So 3 doesn't agree with him because he overindulges, basically. 3 is expansive. 3 can be very indulgent. Whether it's McDonald's or whether it's being narcissistic, he overindulges. And that could really work against him under these energies. So Spirit gave me a stark warning about that he must change his habits, or it could mean, I don't predict people becoming unalived. I stopped doing that a while ago because I figured I don't do that in my private reading, so I'm not going to do that anymore in these forecasts. But that said, it's serious enough that he could unalive soon, but there's still room for change. It's not written in stone yet. But he has to change his habits. Basically, they're showing like liver. That's very 3 energy. That's very Jupiterian energy. Brain most highlighted when I worked on remote sensing on it. Potential brain hemorrhaging, blood sugar issues, congestive heart failure, probably ongoing. And this just partly intuitive with the CHF. And since my dad passed of congestive heart failure, I can see the signs in people. I'll put it that way. So in any event, it's interesting. And I also wrote Trump gained important allies too. So in Central America, also the Philippines came up. I don't know anything about what's going on in the Philippines. Let me go on with my notes here because I think I have more on this topic. Yeah. He has the best doctors in the country. Some of the best doctors on the planet. I really feel like, and I do a little bit of remote sensing, and I know that he gets daily treatments for different things. I mean, as long as he can do his job, it doesn't bother me, to be honest. But I do notice some slippage, and I'm saying this from a both compassionate and a nonpartisan perspective. But he has the best doctors. Why is his diet not monitored? Why is the president of the United States, one of the most important figures in the world, not mandated to take the best care of himself possible? Which means no freaking McDonald's. Hello. And then the other side of it for the people that are more MAGA friendly, how is he going to make America great again if he's not functioning at 100% capacity? So these are just things to think about. There's just too many lies, too many contradictions, and it really just validates all these contradictions. It's like a game of Emperor's Clothes. It's like or like a game of like stare, like who's going to blink first, because it's not just that, but on so many levels, there's so many contradictions that come up, and not just him. So again, I'm not taking sides. I'm on the side of truth. If you want to know where I stand in the political divide, I'm on the side of truth. I'm against the side that orchestrates this insane divide that harms and disempowers the people, basically, because I know the same forces run both sides of the party. So it's fine to support, agree or disagree with him or anybody. No, we're not saying to not have opinions. I mean, I hope that it's well-researched opinions that you have, based on educating yourself on the matters and things like that. But it's important to be politically aware and active. I don't think that's not what I'm saying. You just have to get past that political programming. You're never going to know the truth. And programming hijacks the emotions. If you have a knee-jerk reaction when somebody, like say you support Trump, and they talk about Minneapolis, and somebody just got killed in cold blood, and you just have an angry knee-jerk reaction. That's program. That's what programming does. You want to learn how to rise above that so that your political beliefs and ideologies come more from your heart rather than this insane divide that's being leveled against us. And when this is happening, when we're in the survival-based emotion, we can't connect with spirit as efficiently. We can't connect with our higher selves efficiently, and we are ripe for the picking. We basically become sheep, if not lemmings, to the deep state. So again, I say this a lot, and I'm saying it a little bit stronger now because it's reaching the revolution cycle. It's reaching the next level. Yeah, I mean, I have friends that love Donald Trump, but that's because they really like what he stands for. It's a different vibration, and a lot of you are watching this video right now. I have other friends that love the Democrats, and around 2014, or no, it was earlier than that. 2008. When did Obama get elected? 2008, right? It took me a month, and I was watching him. And in my mind, he turned into a reptile. Like I saw a reptile face in him, and everything changed for them. And then I got the message, the Democratic Party you once followed no longer exists. That's what I heard. And I became independent. I was no longer a Democrat at that time. So anyway, there's a little bit of tidbit of information. Moving right along, another thought came, but it left my brain as soon as it came in. So I'll have to bypass that one. So your perception will always be distorted by your love or hate for him or whatever. So work on releasing that charged energy. Then you'll start seeing through the game. And who knows? There's, he may be really in his mind. I believe he may be really, trying to help and fight for our freedom. I don't know. I'm just putting that out there. But if you get out of that, you get a better idea. I mean, I do have some ideas of where he fits into the grand scheme of things, and I don't hate everything he does. I'll put it that way. Some things, when it comes to things like people getting harmed or stuff like that, or things that seem unfair to me, that I don't like. But I don't like the Democrats for the same reason. So anyway, it's divided, orchestrated, from the weather, like chemtrails, politics. Outrage is created. Once the outrage was wearing off, something new will get people outraged. It's just part of the distraction game. It's part of the technology. So once people get used to what happened in Minneapolis, boom, something else is going to happen. And you're going to see the same firestorms on social media. So ICE Minneapolis. This will spread to other cities, but I think you guys are aware of that and know that there will be more incidents. There is credible evidence that suggests that violence is orchestrated or enhanced, just like with Black Lives Matter. So that pot is getting stirred, basically. To what degree, I don't know. There were ICE incidents in the Obama administration too, right? There were demonstrations, and also a lot of people got deported. People did die under ICE custody also, but the media lens was not focused on it like it is now. And that's the key. The media's job is to direct our attention in a certain area to distract us, to anger us, and all that. And meanwhile, then they're doing other stuff that's taking our freedoms away, taking our rights away, and all that. And we're oblivious to it because we're just so freaking hyper-focused. Now, that said, it's not okay that people die, right? And people get hurt and people get injured. So with compassion, I'm saying all this, put those prayers out there, let's, keep raising our consciousness so people don't have to suffer, so this doesn't have to happen. And again, this is not right versus left. It's organized chaos to drive globalist agendas. So that's really what's going on in a nutshell. I had a vision of Trump being accused of contempt of court or obstruction of justice or something like that in February. Spirit said to watch Trump in February. I said this starting in the autumn, that in the extreme, he could be out of office. That said, I'd say February to April is very tenuous, but sometimes timelines are fluid, and the more I care about something, this is the U.S. president, the harder it is to be very specific about things, because emotions get in the way. I'm human. But that said, I did get the message February. That was going to be a big month. Possible dismissal. As we're approaching February, it feels like there's a little bit longer, at least. My original prediction was next January to June, in that window. That was the original prediction before he even got elected, by the way. So anyway, moving right along. Spirit said to watch from February. All right, said that already. February to April is very defining. April's a 5-month, which is changed. March is a 4-month, which is more revolutionary energy. Very defined. Could even leave off. It's not written in stone, but this potential was shown specifically for this month. So anyway, I'm moving right along. 43 minutes. We're not doing badly time-wise. Okay. So either way, big news, more pressures. Where's the Epstein list? Right? That's a big call. I have to admit, that was a prediction that I missed on, because I was seeing some release the week after Martin Luther King weekend. That week came and gone crickets. I didn't hear anything about the Epstein list. So again, I think it's still coming, but too many will go down. If the list got, if that got exposed, too many people will go now. The royal family, sports, the entertainment industry, U.S. politics, world politics. It's a global global network. You could say satanic or Luciferian, and I think you'd be you'd be correct about that if you did. It's just, they're going to protect it to the max. There's going to be fall guys. I think there already have been. So anyway, where's the estimate? Too many will go down. At the beginning, when everyone was excited about the list, that was what, a couple years ago or a year ago. I said we'll never get the full disclosure. I stand by it. I don't think we'll ever. Well, never say. Spirits say never say never. But it may take a good while before we really know everything that's going on. So I say never say never. So speaking of contempt, were we speaking of contempt? We forecast the Clintons were going to be under a lot of fire in January. Well, it seems like Billy's been a bad boy and isn't following through on court orders, right? So hello, that's probably what we were picking up on. Well, let's just say for contempt of Congress, that's what it was. And also just Trump and the Epstein files, they have all missed deadlines. You and I would be in jail. If we did a tenth of this stuff, you and I would be in jail. Again, what I was saying earlier about things like Trump's health, it's like, why on earth would the doctors that know, they know that he has severe inflammation, why would he be allowed to eat McDonald's? That the contradiction are getting more and more glaring by the day. And I'd be here for hours if I went through the whole list. So that's just another example. So in any event, speaking of contempt, contempt of Congress, so they're not going to go to jail. At least I don't think they are. And then this is the time of mass ascension. So, and this is the part, and this distraction is trying to really block and waylay the mass ascension that's naturally happening. They're using, they're unleashing different frequencies and programs through our internet, through our cell phone. It's all, travels and, my low frequency radio waves, mostly in microwaves. So everything's a frequency. Like there's a Morse code. There's a way to program people subconsciously or program their energetic fields through these frequencies. We've got to do our heart work. The heart's, if we get this heart super strong in resonance, it's not going to work on you. So there's a reason why for 4 or 5 years now I've been preaching heart-brain coherence like the gospel, because I saw this time coming. I saw this is the way that we're going to avoid being super programmed as the technology gets more sophisticated and harder to resist, basically. So anyway, if you understand, you have to get beyond the political programming. It's a trap. That doesn't mean, again, doesn't mean to not have opinions, basically. You should always have opinions, right? They should be educated. So anyway, speaking of which, this appeared a mass awakening, dive deeper into spiritual practices, new light code frequencies, activation, and connecting with extraterrestrial intelligence is happening. February is a big month for that. I had this vision of crystal pyramids being discovered, not sure where. I mean, I want to say in the Mediterranean underwater, but and again, we may not get all this information, so it may not all be known, but I think this is going to validate that humanity evolution is cyclical, not linear. They're going to find signed a very advanced civilization well before they thought there was advanced civilizations, basically. Perhaps things that can only be explained by extraterrestrial technology and assistance. So a big month for ET exposure, some announcements. I think I got a little bit overexcited when I was saying February is going to be the big month. I think so. It's going to be some announcement, but upon further meditation on it, I think late year into early 2027 is really when the world's going to know or it's going to start to know, basically. But that said, I would not be surprised if there's something with the UN or the president here in the US, if there's some announcement that validates that extraterrestrials have been around longer than we have, honestly, in my opinion, anyways. So influx of higher energies helps us, and this number 3 energy is conducive to our learning and our growth. Time to learn more, travel to sacred sites, do ceremonies, or your spiritual endeavors are magnified under number 3 energy, especially with the astrological aspects in play here. So geopolitics, you see a major nation pulling out of NATO, maybe not in February, but I think we'll hear noise about that. I'm sort of divided between Germany and Poland, but I think in that area, general stabilization, Eastern Europe, big deal, right? It's already happening. Revolution is global. Further expression of consciousness clashing with the control systems. As we get more conscious and our energy rises, the control systems try to clamp down. And people are just tired of being controlled and tired of being lied to and being herded around like sheep, basically. So this is the point of the revolutionary cycle that we're in, that more are aware of it and starting to fight back, basically. More demonstrations. France could be the next leader to be removed. Could be. I mean, I think I feel like I'm talking Spirit saying he has deep political connection, so it'd actually be hard to remove him. So we'll see what happens. Starmer might be easier. And I have a feeling it's going to be countries I'm not even talking about right now. But I do think that's part of the revolution cycle and huge protests. Russia came up, but all over really. And what's going on in Iran, that's a revolution that's happening there, right? I mean, I don't know if you would call Venezuela a revolution, but, you could argue that in, that there's a lot of that activity that's building here in the United States, and it's probably going to reach a new level in February. So I think more protests. We think National Guards, military getting called into certain sites. Some of it may be orchestrated, to explain how that happens earlier. Also, area Libya, Egypt, Somalia came up for radical changes. Probably most of Africa, but those areas came. Also, Mexico and U.S. clashes. Also, Cuba came up. I think our president has a good relationship with the Mexico president, but we'll see what that is. Amidst chaos, global mafia becomes more exposed. So anyway, there's some good news. AI networks. Trump supported that, right? He supported the Stargate agenda. He got he was able to lobby for $500 billion in funding. Part of that includes mRNA vaccines for cancer, research into that and development of that using AI and mRNA vaccines. But if you think about him in his first term, he was totally against mRNA vaccine. What changed his mind? There's much more to the story than what we see. I'll just leave it at that. Expansion and corruption exposures, scenes of violation of human rights publicized more. So more people are going to be seeing it around the world, which is good. Freedom of speech issues. New algorithm is silencing voices for freedom and change. So they have a Gemini running the show of everything that's able. Like if I'm a YouTube creator, well, Gemini sees what I'm doing now on Facebook, on Instagram. I'm not on TikTok, which I understand they pulled a lot of channels off of TikTok recently. So the algorithm is kind of like the silent remover of freedom of speech. Basically, they're not actually telling us we can't say on our mind, just that nobody's going to see it. So not too surprising. I'm not expecting this video to go viral. I'll just leave it that way. It's for us anyways. So anyway, March for Peace. We spoke about that what's going to happen in January, demonstrations for peace. So like the Buddhist monks, that I think they're I don't know if they're in Washington yet, but they're on their way. More fires globally, some intentional. So we haven't seen a lot of news around fires lately. Well, I think in February we're going to see more news on that. China, Russia, Australia were three primary areas that came up for that, but it could be anywhere. Speaking of which, with irregularities, winter storm, geoengineering, I did a whole video on that where I took more of the scientific approach. I think people misunderstood, thinking that I don't believe in the chemtrails, but my goal of that was to make people a little bit more discerning, because at least 80% of what I see on Facebook are common chemtrails, based on the fact that I do. I mean, I was a conspiracy theorist before that was even a term, in the 80s, even late 70s. And I'm also a trained meteorologist. And I know how condensation interacts with the upper atmosphere. And when you have a big storm moving in, it moistens that upper atmosphere. So you have more contrails, but that doesn't mean the chemtrails are not real. In fact, I'm 99.9% sure that they are. So let me move on with that. Speaking of which, regulators on winter storm, geoengineering is on people's mind. So after I did the video, I did some remote sensing and viewing and channeling. And what they were saying was that there was some activity around that storm, but it wasn't so much the cloud seeding. It's more like research, almost like developing new technologies to influence larger scale weather systems. So like we had an incident, not too long ago in Texas where there were all kinds of chemtrails seen, a storm move over, dumped 3 times as much rain as was forecast. Areas got flooded out, and that was slated to be a smart city. At least that's the narrative around that. So this is a much larger, this was a storm covering, 2/3 of the country. So I think there's a lot of experimenting on how to work with that to either enhance them or steer them and stuff like that. So that's what I got anyways. And much of the data was research, not as much enhancement, but smart dust was used. You remember smart dust, or do you know what that is? Other things used to develop new tools for geoengineering. So these are nanoparticles. And what is being shown is that when clouds form, it's like vapor, or what's the right word? Like gaseous water needs a nuclei to form like the little water drops of clouds. So it uses dust and things in the atmosphere. So now they're doing this, then it can use these nanoparticles to create the clouds also. And you might see changes in the consistency of snow and precipitation as a result. I think some of it was research, but I think some of it, was it's always going to be used. I mean, weaponizing weather, sure, that's a great advantage, right? And it also creates a lot of fear and displacements of people. So science and discoveries, hot topics in February through April. Some new info on sightings, drones, I think will come up. So we may get another thing like that. The latest coronal mass ejection gets researched more. More news on the polar flip potential. I did a couple of videos on that. And just briefly, the fact that we had this powerful solar flare and coronal mass ejection that had such a profound effect really shows how the magnetic field is changing, it's weakening, and it's geomagnetic excursion in progress. So if this doesn't wake people up, solar cycle 26 maximum that's going to be in the mid 2030s. So I did a whole video on that. So January forecast, we forecast a big ice storm. Like this storm was well forecast in my psychic forecast, including the power outages and all the problems that happened. Widespread, right? Record cold in Florida. You got that by seeing ice on the Hollywood sign. At first, I thought that was Hollywood, California. And speaking on that note, I think LA is going to be one area there's going to be a lot of ice activity, the immigration department. But Hollywood, Florida is projected to go near or at freezing. I think it's tomorrow night or I think Saturday night, which is, that happens maybe once every 20 or 30 years that far south. So I think that's what I was picking up on. So anyway, where are we? All right, but a minor. All right, Jennifer. So a minor warm up before the next Arctic outbreak towards mid-month. So next week we may get, here we may go above freezing, closer to the coast. I'm in the Catskill Mountains. It may even get into the 40s. And then I think another deep freeze is coming. I did a video or part of a video about what changes the polar vortex and why that's happening and everything. I mean, some of it could be geoengineered also. That just sort of adds to it. And of course, the solar energy, the coronal mass ejection and solar energy also adds fuel to the system. It makes everything stronger, including weather systems. So we could get spring lake, all right, sort of around mid-month, big coastal storm that signals a pattern change. And then it could get spring lake around the 3rd week of February here in the Northeast. And basically, the poles, they need to recharge, because when we have all this cold air with the weak polar vortex, sooner or later, your warm air replaces that cold air. There's no more cold air to inject into the lower 48 or into Europe. By the way, big snowstorms in Europe. I think that's on my notes. So it's going to retool, and then it'll get cold again, if I'm correct, towards the very end of February and into March. So storms shown big mudslides and cliff slides along Southern California. I predicted the flooding in January. It's been pretty dry since then, but around the middle to third week, I think there's going to be some problems in California again. But after this big flare, that's process of light code frequencies assisting in ascension, assisting the earth. People doing spiritual work receive upgrades towards their ascension. So keep doing that. New information translates into changes in government, though more control measures implemented, trickles of positivity, and working towards more humanity approach, working towards more humanitarian approaches gets so I see we're already on an hour. I have about an hour 20 minutes to an hour and a half life on my computer, so let me get through the last of these. I think it's like 2.5 more pages. New technologies expand AI use and reach job markets affected. Great Britain royal family changes. I don't follow that, but curiously I had a vision of a female being crowned. I think Edward's next in line, right? Although, I mean, maybe females crowned as a duchess. I don't know how that works. See what goes on around Charlotte. Not Charlotte. In the royal family, Charlotte. Anyway, but watch Charles. Or Starmer. I think there's some issues with one of those leaders around that area. And generally a month of surprises, chaos leading to more change. So higher aspects of our nature also get activated, but will be met with stronger resistance. So these are real forces that don't want you to expand in the number 3 months. So that's part of the new revolution. So new revolution is a revolution in consciousness, but it will translate into battles too. And most wars are fought on the cyber battlefield. Not in my notes, but cyber attacks ridiculously high. So I think that trend continues. Develop your practices, develop your spiritual warriorship, work with your guides, the extraterrestrials. They're closer than ever. I mean, they're always close, but they're more accessible than ever. So it's a big cosmic opportunity. In another news, I got images of hitman was hired to murder an important political figure or activist. I didn't get which one, but that's interesting. That just came up, and I wasn't trying. So back to chemtrails, on nanoparticles. Spirit said much of this is collecting data. All right, I said that already. And sometimes things get repeated. So record solar flare hit in one of the 2 periods I predicted in January. One was around the 8th. We had minor solar flares, but nothing major. The other one, the new moon, that was the big one. And though I think March will bring another high-end solar event, around the new moon then, when 3i Atlas and Jupiter are interacting. But around this next new moon in February, there could be some solar activity also. I think now it's just really starting to settle into the earth, and there's going to be changes in the earth, basically. So time, new moon, mid-month, there can also be major impacts. Another ice storm a little bit north of the one that we had in the U.S., more localized. Now the energy settling into the earth. The atmosphere, though, does get some more intense, some more weather records stuff. Big snows in Europe, England, France, that area. They've shown me snows in Arabia, maybe, or the desert, maybe the Sahara even. Earthquakes increase. So earthquake hit the area. Though the area that I said to watch, especially near the California-Mexico border, they had a moderate earthquake. There's the biggest one in quite a few years, but that wasn't a big, impactful event. That could be a foreshock, but I hope that's all I was picking up on with that. I'll just leave it at that. So those 2 have only moderate. All right. Also, Bay Area, the Cascadia subduction on the Cascades, New Madrid, usual suspect. Also, New Zealand, that area around that part of the globe is getting more active. So keep an eye on there also. However, I think volcanoes will be more in the news. Specifically, Sweden popped. I wasn't aware there were volcanoes in Sweden. I mean, Iceland, yeah, but I'm not sure about Sweden. That popped up in my mind. Island volcano, probably Indonesia, increased activity around the Arctic in general, maybe Antarctic, more in the Arctic. Turkey was shown for major seismic event. Also watch Iran, Iraq, into the stands like Pakistan, Afghanistan, into the Western Himalayas. Big protests, wars out in those areas. Well, there's already been in that area. Big problems happening in Sicily and Italy. There have been huge mudslides, cliff slides in that area. Huge storm hit there. So watch out. Campi Flegrei for more activity, more earthquakes. And New Zealand, all right, we talked about it. Mostly this is the true beginning of the core of the Aquarian age. Acceleration of those doing the spiritual work towards ascension. Though it's still quite active, changeable, we can reset. This is more of a reset, even though it's quite active. We can kind of settle, do some grounding, do some reset work, do some breathing, double down on your spiritual activities, allow your systems and your nervous system, your heart, your brain, your auric fields to start and such to start to settle into these new energies. So it's a hard adjustment because it really hit us hard. So now we start to adapt to it, and our bodies and we start to get used to it. So it's good to exercise the body, but yoga, breathing, stuff like that, really good for the month of February. And those still quite, and new gifts as well as new sensitivities can come online for you. So let's do a few. It's about 106. I really want to do a transmission though while I have time. Yeah, I have tarot cards. Just for the fun of it. Let me pull 3 cards just see if there's any other areas. Jersey had a 2.4. Yeah, and around the Midwest had one recently. So our area too. Yeah, it's like again, the Earth is starting to really activate based on the infusion of all the solar energy, and I really intuitively feel that, always felt that. Not all scientists are on board with that, so still theoretical technically, but see it time and time again. Not 100%, but there's a like in statistics, it's more likely to happen during these events than other times. So it's not 100%, but you have to look at it statistically and see the trends and see the patterns that way. Anyway, let me just ask to pull 3 cards for if there's any new messages or anything that I forgot, and then we'll do as long as my computer's still going. Yeah, a lot of this is still really about money. I've been seeing a lot of aces, a lot of new beginnings. So I think one of the things that I might have missed is there may be new laws, new rules, new regulations. Wands is fire energy, and this is earth energy. So again, looks very smoky. I think that's showing me like a aquatic volcano. They can be very destructive also. And the certain type of volcano can cause tsunamis. Not the actual seamount. That's a different type of volcano. So that won't happen if the Cascadia subduction zone had a major quake. That would cause a tsunami in that area. But I think what they're showing is that there is going to be a financial decline, and there's people are going to really feel like they need to hold on to what they have. I think it's also telling us or reiterating that those of us that that have investments, whether it's metals or something else, hold on to them, even if it tanks for a little while. It'll come back up again. It's part of the game, part of the process. And to me, it looks like I don't know if it's Philippines, Indonesia. I think that area. I think what we're going to see in February, maybe March, is a volcano that's very impactful that could potentially affect global weather. Potentially, I'll put it that way. We do have spirit, God, source, extraterrestrial, advanced beings that are really working with us. So I don't think we ever get the worst case scenarios of these events, but it happens, and then the weather cools for a couple of years. I mean, if it's huge, it could lead to an ice age, but I'm not really seeing that at this time, I want to say. And I think some money finagling, some illegal activities are going to start to get exposed. But I think money, security, I think this is just showing that that's really very much spotlighted in the month of February, changes in the market. So stay on top of that. You try to anticipate things. But it just, I feel like it's just saying, hold on. So we'll see how low gold and silver get before they recover again. And of course, there's like the inflation, there's the devaluing of money and all that stuff. So I think what they're saying is that we're really trending towards a financial crash or collapse of some kind. And that's going to help to implement new and fair financial system. Might start to trend towards the quantum financial system. Honestly, I'm not sure the degree of physical gold that's available for us to go on a gold standard, but I think if we did, the value of gold would go up, right? Especially if it's in limited quantities. But we'll see. Actually, that happens. I just feel like they're saying hold on to things. Don't sell things quite yet. Things have to change and stuff like that. So this can be very explosive and volatile. So we're still good. Let's do a little energy work to try. These are very high, erratic energies that we're coming into. They're very spiritual energies. So what I do is I call on a group. I call the master teachers. They work through me, and as I'm leading and guiding the meditation, they're able to access your energies, and they say we're increasing the frequency. So they create you can't destroy or create energy. It's just energy, right? But you can change the qualities and frequencies of it. So they raise that. So it's a higher vibration. Higher vibrations penetrate deeper, or higher wavelengths. I should say higher frequencies, higher wavelengths penetrate deeper. And they go more internally and change things from the inside out. So this will help us to feel grounded, help us to be safe, and help us to be more energetically resonant with the new energies that are coming in this revolution cycle, so that we don't get harmed. And maybe it doesn't have to be that big of a deal. And for empowerment. So we'll just do this for a few minutes. So just get nice and relaxed for a moment. Just clear your mind, get nice and relaxed. And just feel your shoulders relax, chin and cheeks relax, and forehead relax. Inhale, exhale. So you want to get more synchronized. And if you're watching this video, it's the same energy, same power. We exist in a realm of time and space, but we're not of time and space. So everything happens now. Everything's in the now. They're here. I feel them. Okay. Inhale, love and light. Hold, circulate. Exhale, relax. Breathe out. Inhale in. And exhale out. Inhale, exhale. Let your shoulders get nice and relaxed. And just allow yourself to absorb the energies, the resonance of these sound patterns. It may be more of a light code or more of a toning experience. Readings, dears, we are here to assist you in getting out of your head, so to speak, and more into your heart, to that place where you find that true security. There is no security in money. There's no security in a job. There's no security because you are temporary in your physical being and in your physical expressions. Everything will die, including you one day. So true security comes through your resonant connection with the vibration of spirit, source, and light. The one thing that'll last forever. So when you resonate in those frequencies, you start to create more physical security in your physical domain, even if it is an insecure, unstable realm. Know that you're always safe and protected no matter what. This isn't about this lifetime. You are all here because you're in a 1,000-year program of ascension now. This is just one stop along the way. Sure, the suffering, people under torture, very hard for the empaths to see that. And it goes on every day in your world. It's just part of the lesson. It's part of the energy. It's part of the transformation. But understand, dear ones, that it's not the reality. When you go into the spirit world, it's like it never even happened. And you understand it's just a stop along the way. And this is where true compassion comes. You naturally want to help people to feel better, but you don't start feeling sorry or pitying them and feeding into that lower vibration. Instead, you work on lifting them up and not understanding this is happening for a reason, but we can help you to, shall we say, ease the pain, ease the blow, as it were, and define the spiritual meanings to things. And once the spiritual message is found, very often the physical suffering diminishes at that point or soon after. And that's likely to happen on a global level, on a collective consciousness level also. But do understand that that's a process. It's still decades in the making. So you're still processing or progressing that. One of the things that channel misses that we see in the areas of Southeast China, huge uprisings and invasions also. Can include Taiwan in that area and that part of Asia. There's a certain frequency in that area. It's sort of like, how do we describe this physically? It's sort of like a fuse, as it were, that actually affects huge changes within the center and core of the planet and affects other continents. But it's for raising vibration. It's not anything negative. So just relax, breathe. It helps you to sink into these new frequencies. New to us, new to you, not new. Frequencies are as old as time as themselves, even older. It's all energy. Abrano Shiona ya yono and place your focus in your heart center. Feel your heart blending with all the other hearts with us in this great circle of light, of energy, of beings. Find it necessary to do some purging as well. After the purge comes the expansion. It's an expansive energy. It's a growth energy. In your month of February, you to so no me hado mana. And you're all on a beautiful golden fire horses, ready to accept more responsibility that comes with more knowledge and power. The horse is able to explore, cover more ground, because horses are faster than humans. This will help in your growth exponentially in the coming year, as well as aligning you with those beings or spirits. So we work to clear any of the trickster or negative entities that pose as spirit guides or helpers, and to be in this beautiful, bright, expansive light that only attracts high vibrational beings, energies, and experiences. And yes, sometimes pain and suffering can be a high vibrational experience. It depends. Keep an eye for a lot of upheaval in Japan also, weather or ocean related as well as political. Just relax and let these energies settle. Feel your energy expand into the heart, but feel also settled down to your lower chakras, through your root, into the earth. Spread your roots into the earth, ground and center. Visualize a little opening at the base of your auric field to let any byproduct energies, staticky energies, byproducts of this energy transmission just flow easily into the earth, so you don't retain any jitteriness or anxiety, and you can just be very relaxed. Spirit has your back. We, the master teachers, that we're connected with the Arcturians, the Pleiadians, the Sirians, and all of the beings that are working with your world, with your multiple worlds, because you exist in multiple dimensions. Just be ready. Just be ready to experience some physical discomfort from time to time. Be okay with that. And always resonate in truth. And never be afraid to express your truth. But use discernment. Only to those who are reachable and teachable. And certainly not to those who are antagonistic. There was a prior revolution cycle. It was the white hammer with the crucifixions. So it's cycles upon cycles. But after revolution comes change, comes reform. It's all good. Stay in your heart, stay in the eye of the storm. The heart is the energetic eye of the storms around you. You will be safe there. We are the master teachers. And wow, almost 70 of you stayed for that. Good job, everybody that stayed to help. Because, the more of us that are doing this, the more we're affecting the collective positively. So we appreciate you. I think on Monday, I'm going to have a shorter version of this. Maybe I'll have a few more what they say about Japan. I don't know. I don't even remember. Anyway, all right, guys. All right. So hopefully you found that helpful. Thank you. If you want to like the video, that might help the algorithm to get it out to more people. Thanks, Michael, for all the advice you've been giving. I haven't been able to see it all, but thanks for sharing that with our community. Very important that we know these things, right? All right, so I'm going to end now. Thank you, everybody. Love you. We will see you next time. Next time will be Sunday, 11 a.m. for tarot time, followed by 7 p.m. for the full moon transmission. That'll help further. This was just kind of like a a snippet. So we're going to go deeper into these energies to really synchronize with these very evolutionary, revolutionary energies of February, while we assimilate all these new transmissions we receive from the sun and other sources, assimilated into our bodies, our minds, our energetic fields. And you should experience some new things. Maybe you become more psychic, or you feel more energy in your hands when you do healings, or things like that, because it helps to enhance our intuitive gifts, right? All this energy, it helps to heal our own bodies and to help others heal, and all of that. There's so much negative energies. There's what's the word, pollution, I guess, for lack of a better word, impurities, not just energetically but physically, with all the spraying that goes on. There's a lot of chemicals that precipitate eventually to the earth. All the Wi-Fi signals and everything. We also have satellites burning up, several every day. And eventually, some of those metals, those heavy metals, will precipitate to the earth. So, we have to keep our bodies. You have to hydrate, do periodic cleansing, do your spiritual work. These are important times. And if you do this, you'll not only survive, but you'll thrive. And that's what we want to do. So that's my final thought of the evening. Thank you, everybody. We love you. We'll see you at the next video. Namaste.